Hey everyone, so one thing about me is that I have quite a few different interests. I really love technology and I'm just a huge art nerd as well. I got a degree actually in chemistry, which was not really technology. That ended up transferring into, some interests in technology that I had developed into a software career and an interest in software. But I also got a degree in art. I don't really remember too much about how I got into artwork. I'd always kind of I'd wanted to be good at art, and I wanted to study it, but I wasn't really confident enough to go into it until I got to college, took one class, and then just kind of went from there and decided that I also had to have an art major. Obviously, I ended up going into technology because that's where the opportunity was for me, but I've always maintained this sort of interest in art and trying to improve as an artist. So what I wanted to do was also kind of take my channel in the direction of art as well, because I think the two of them, they play off one another in an interesting way. I find that things in technology are really informed by art as well, because when you create a piece of art, you kind of get and you show it to people, you get an understanding of how they consume it and what they think about it, which is important for a software perspective when we talk about usability and things like that. You want to be able to understand how someone is going to be able to consume a piece of software. But ultimately, I'm not incredibly good at art. I'm not incredibly good at drawing and painting. I've been learning over the years, just constantly. Not so much constantly, but every once in a while I kind of go through phases where I like to draw more. And what I've been doing is just practicing the basics. I know what the basics are, but I didn't really get the best handle on them as I went through college. So what I've drawn today and what I'm going to go over, I've recorded a video of me painting something. And I'm just going to go over how I did it and what I was doing throughout the process. I'm trying to learn the fundamentals so that I can get a better understanding of how to create a full piece without having to, be concerned about it, or while I'm creating about it, be nervous about what I'm doing and things like that. So this is really just a light study. I create a box with a little step in it, and then I try to figure out where the light is and where the light source is, and then how that translates across the entire box. So let's get into it. So I start out just basic, box modeling. I'm trying to figure out where the lines are going to be and what box I'm creating. I've done quite a bit of work on understanding perspective, trying to learn perspective. I've used grids. I'm not using one right now because I'm trying to get more confident with my arm movements. Just gaining confidence in being able to put the pen onto the iPad in this case and then draw a line across with it. So I'm not using any help on this, but if you're at the stage where you like help, you always want help in terms of like a grid, that's something you should do. Don't feel like there's a one way to create it, or one way you should or shouldn't be able to create it, to create a piece of artwork. Now the really important thing to remember about grids is that, let's say you are making a scene. You don't want to get an hour into your drawing, start drawing another piece, draw that for another hour, and then find out that the perspectives are wrong. Having an actual grid can be technically and professionally important when creating a piece of artwork. So some people can say, like, yeah, grids are, like an aid that you shouldn't have to rely on. But if you're really trying to make something professional or just finish something in a certain amount of time, it is important to use grids. So don't shy away from them if you need them. And as you can see, I'm already finding different parts of my drawing that I kind of drew not in the right way. So I'm adding on to them and cutting off and adjusting the lines so it kind of fits what I'm imagining in my head and where I'm imagining the grid is. It would be a lot cleaner if I did it with the grid itself, but I wasn't, really in the mood for that. One thing I like to do is put the drawing down and organize it into another layer, and then I can kind of toggle it on and off as I'm painting. So I have my basic, stepped box here, and I made a stepped box because I wanted to try. This is my first time trying to draw lines on a stepped box like this. So I'm imagining the light source coming from the left-hand side of the screen here, and I'm drawing lines across from where the light source is, how it hits the object, and then where it's going to end up. So I'm drawing completely through the form to try to get these visual aids as to where the shadows I believe should lie. So I have like a 12-inch iPad, and it can get pretty difficult to draw a full line across the whole thing. One way to hack that is to shorten, just zoom out, and then draw a shorter line that you might be more confident handling. So now the difficult part, I've done like the basic from one light source. How does this? Where do these lines go? I've got the top lines down, but now thinking about the rest of the object, where does the light hit the floor? I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure I got this right, but the way that I did this was to kind of the first way I thought was to try to put a line down at the bottom and then draw a line from there, which is not completely correct because my light source is kind of like a street lamp sort of thing hanging up at the top. But that was my first attempt, and I was trying to figure out how this step works, and it was kind of screwing me up a little bit. So I play with things back and forth here before referencing a book called How to Render by, I believe, Scott Robertson. I'll link it below. The techniques I'm using are outlined in How to Draw and How to Render by this artist, and he has a couple of YouTube pages as well. And I've been taught multiple different ways to learn how to draw. It turns out for me, the technical way to do it seems to be the one that resonates well for me, which kind of makes sense because I'm an analytical type of person. Then when I looked in the book, I could see that going from the light source, you kind of draw a line down to the bottom to kind of get an understanding of where the rays of light would hit, and then you draw that line, and it ended up being close to what I wanted, and I think it's correct. At least I think it's close enough for me and the skill that I'm at right now. Because again, I'm just trying to practice some things in a more technical way than I had been doing it and had been taught to do it before. I kind of been taught this sort of general method where they say, just kind of feel it out and see where that light comes from and things like that. But I need more specific ways to solve problems and understand shape in a 3D space, understand light in a 3D space. And this method of drawing is a lot similar to actually like 3D modeling. It's like 3D modeling without the actual modeling tools, but it's pretty much the same set of skills and understandings, just that the computer kind of automates them for you in 3D modeling. And in drawing, you're a little more flexible with what you have. Interesting topic. You can kind of model out everything in 3D before you draw it. If you have a complicated scene, it can be a little easier to set up perspective that way and move around shapes that way. So that's something to take a look at if you're a little bit adventurous, if you want to get more advanced with the type of work that you're doing. And I think here I probably got distracted. Now I'm trying to pick out. So I'm going to switch here to painting. So I've set this all out. I created some new layers. And now I'm just going to widely brush out each section, each face, based on the colors that should be there. So the darkest ones should be furthest from the light. And those are these faces right here. So I draw way across where I want to hit, and then I just cut back in. And that's a nice way to get an even coat without worrying about hitting the edges and getting the edges looking the same as as the middle of a face. And that's pretty important. That's one thing you should be doing it in painting, but it's super easy to do it in digital artwork. So now I've kind of figured out that line that I had drawn was not correct. The light is going to kind of come across from where it is, because it's kind of like in the front. So I kind of figured that out. I drew that line as a reference so that I can go and build this medium light. So this light is a little bit under. It's the shadow from the larger light, and this is my mid-tone shadow, because it's coming directly. The light source is able to inform this plane, so the horizontal plane. So that one I felt should be in the mid-range of the entire painting. I'm only using grayscale colors here, and the top horizontal layer, that is going to be my lightest. I didn't draw in the background. I kind of ignored that piece. But I wanted to give the top some texture. I didn't want it to be completely flat white, because that doesn't quite make sense. That's not how things actually look. So it's important to put some color on there, so you can give some texture and information as to what the surface actually is. So I've done the top and sides, and now it's time to finish out the front. And then do the shadow. I had to make a new shade here to hit the one that I wanted. Again, same technique. I'm using kind of like a charcoal brush to quickly hit the surface, and then erase away the pieces that I don't need, and it gives a nice even finish to it. And it's pretty quick to do. This is kind of like the first layer that you would create. This isn't kind of like a finished drawing. This isn't a finished painting. I'm kind of doing more studies right now, but this is the first layer you should put on to block out your colors, and then you'd refine from there. So everything, the style that I want to use is a very straightforward layering process. So you can see I'm using the same shade for the stepped shadow as I am for the actual shadow, and then the darkest pieces are the ones that should see the least amount of light based on where the light is. So now I'm kind of cleaning it up and trying to fill out the edges. At the bottom, it's at the bottom of your base. It's always a good idea to try to darken it a little bit. It gives it a little bit of weight and feel to it, so that you can kind of give the sense that this is a real object that is sitting on something, and that kind of helps bring that out. And it's always good to scroll back out. I'm at the end of it here, but it's always good to scroll back out and kind of zoom out on what you're doing to take a look at your product at the end to see if you want to change anything. Alright, so that was kind of quick. It's where I am with my painting right now. I'm going to be continuing to do more of these and talking through them, understanding them a little bit better, and trying to get to the next stage every single time. Maybe a little bit harder shadows, maybe a little bit more complex objects, just to begin to understand how light moves across different types of objects. So hopefully this is maybe helpful to you. I want to continue to do these, and to hopefully eventually get to a point where I can make some really nice pieces of art, full pieces with color, everything like that, with different texture types and different painting types, and maybe even I'll be able to do this, make a nice thing without any paint at all, like a nice drawing, which is something that makes me really nervous at the moment. So this is something that I like to do, things that aren't exactly things that I'm straightforward good at. I'm pretty good with analytical techniques, pretty good with software, pretty good with numbers, but drawing and artwork is somewhat of a struggle for me. So it's nice to kind of expand in a different area of my brain, and that's why I'm doing this. So hopefully, let me know what you think, if this is helpful to you to see someone kind of figuring this out as they go. It can often feel a little intimidating to watch super experienced artist create something because you feel like you can't ever get to that, or it's so difficult, or it looks easy and then you try it and then it's frustratingly difficult to actually do. So hopefully this will give someone some confidence to go and try something new. And let me know what you think. If you want a certain type of, if you're interested in a certain type of drawing, or if you're interested in a certain type of painting, a certain problem you're having with your drawings, just let me know. And hopefully I'll be able to make some more content around that. So thanks for tuning in.